Good morning. Welcome to the March 12th, 2025 meeting of the Audit Committee of the Columbia Economic Development Corporation. We have a guest with us, and Mike, if you could tee that up, please.
Good morning. We're pleased to have with us today Nicole Overbaugh of UHY. Nicole is the lead auditor on our account, and she has an audit report and a letter with required communications to share with us today. Nicole?
Thank you, Mike. So yeah, we have the basic financial statements to present today for the year ended December 31st, 2024. I think Mike's updated the committee about the single audit work, but just to update the committee if anybody's not aware, we don't have the result of the single audit included in our package for today because we're taking a little more time to make sure we get through that process and make all the right decisions there. There were some things that came up in regards to what we needed to test this year when we did our major program determination, which is a calculation we do each year to determine which programs we have to test that receive federal funding. We determined that there would be two programs we needed to test, which is the ARPA money that you had gotten from the county and the CDBG money. However, after informing management of that, there were some questions that arose, and there were some additional inquiries that Mike made on his behalf with the county to make sure that we were treating everything correctly. And it's been determined that perhaps the ARPA money is really money that CEDC received as a beneficiary versus a subrecipient. The single audit guidance on that is not black and white, so there's some subjectivity there. It seems the county has treated it that way, treating the money as CEDC receiving it as a beneficiary. But there's also a case to say that you were a subrecipient, which is how we treated it in the past. So bottom line is we're just taking some more time to make sure we get on the same page with the county and with management to make sure that that's being handled correctly. So we won't be issuing that by March 31st. It's not due by March 31st. You actually have until September. We want to issue these financial statements by March 31st, so you're in compliance with Paris. But the idea is that we would issue it shortly thereafter because we don't want to delay, the process. We want to get it done.
The main thing is because we've gone to the next level, up to $1 million trigger, they have to audit other programs, and we're trying to determine that they audit programs that are required to be audited, not programs that were exempt, and then find out that it wasn't done properly.
Right, and this year, the CDBG money, which we will have to still audit that program. I don't think there's any questions around that. That is a new major program that we've never tested before. So in the past, we've always tested the SBA micro loan program. So now, because the CDBG money exceeded the threshold for what's considered a type A program, which is $750,000, it's gone above and beyond that. We have to test that as a major program this year. So that will be tested for the first time. We won't be testing the SBA micro loan program, which is what we've typically audited in the past.
And the good part is it's a $300,000 program where we make 12 loans. So the test is what, 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's not going to be difficult. It's it's a pretty straightforward program. Like Mike's saying, there's not a lot of activity that you have to test. It's just when you do a single audit, there's a lot of documentation that goes into it that you kind of don't really see. It's behind the scenes that we're doing that management doesn't always really see everything that goes into our documentation because it's all this compliance work that we have to document. So while it seems very straightforward, there's still a lot behind the scenes that from a regulatory basis, we have to document and put in our work paper. So that's really what takes the time. So sometimes, there's a question of, okay, well, why does it take so much time for you to do this? Why are you charging us so much to do this? But it's not just, kind of checking a few boxes and saying, okay, we're good to go. There's just a lot of documentation that's required behind it because it's very regulated. It's federal funds. And if we get audited by, the OMB or by our peer reviewers, we have to make sure we have all that information, really well documented and all our ducks in a row. So that's really what causes the time.
What does the term single audit refer to?
Single audit is the audit of federal funds, basically. So when you receive federal funds and it's above $750,000 for the year of federal expenditures that you make. So it's not necessarily when you receive the funds, it's when you spend the funds that triggers that audit. when you spend more than 750,000 of federal funds in 1 year, then you're subject to a single audit.
And we did $546,000 of loans, and we did $300,000 of micro enterprise grants. And we did 1 or 2 of the equipment line grants through Office of Fee Renewal using federal funds. So we were well over $1 million.
Right, and with the CDBG, what's interesting too is because those equipment loans that Mike's talking about, they're loans that go on your books and then they get forgiven over time. They stay on the books as loans. They actually stay in that calculation each year, considered federal funds. So when it's a loan program, it's not based on the expenditures. It's a little bit different. So when it's a loan program, it's basically whatever your loans are that are on the books, plus any additional funding that you receive in the current year. That's what aggregates to the number that we then have to consider for the federal funds.
And when they did that, it put us over $3 million.
Yes.
So just little old us here in Columbia County.
So it also, it's, sometimes you kind of lose sight of just how much you have in the federal funds, and it's, it is growing because your micro loan program is growing, your CDBG money is program is growing. Even the ARPA money, you got more this year than you had in the prior year. So, I mean, it's all good. It's good for the organization. It means you can do more things and, lend more money. It just creates some additional complexity on the audit side.
All right, thank you.
With the report that is on the table, it has two adjustments that were made since the draft was put out. One related to the amount we had booked for loan loss reserve. We had booked 308, and we overstated it because of our calculation. The calculation reduces it to 300.
Right, so, but the version that they have on the table is the version from yesterday, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanna make sure.
And the second item related to membership dues. Membership dues that were paid in December intended to be 2024 membership dues. When the first draft was put together was still in 2024. That money has been moved to 2025. The net result is we went from approximately $43,000 in net income to $31,000 in net income. The reason being that we took the membership dues out and moved it into 2025, and we reduced the 308,000 paper reserve for loan loss reserve allocation and moved that back into 2025.
Yep, so, I mean, our audit opinion is a clean, unmodified audit opinion, which is what you would expect. Mike just explains the change in your net position for the year, so I won't reiterate that. Just looking at page 9, statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net positions, just some of the things that stand out there to me. You'll see your grant revenue from Columbia County went from about 250,000 last year to 578,000. And the main cause of that is the 286,000 that you got of microloans through CDBG. So that was funding that came in through CDBG, and then you paid it out as grants to local businesses. So that's why if you look down below in the grant expense, your grant expense is $403,038 versus $80,150 last year. So the main driver of that was those microloans that you were able to give out. The rest of the revenue and expenses are pretty consistent if you look year over year. Your interest on the loans is up a bit amount, about $40,000 there, but all in all, pretty consistent year.
And if you take the total operating expenses of $1,487,000 and take out the 300, you get $1,187,000 compared to $1,150,000 last year.
On page 8, your statement of net position, just point out some of the big swings there. Your SBA technical assistant grant receivable, you'll see that's up a little bit compared to last year. That's just because you had 2 quarters that were unpaid as of 12/31 versus 1 quarter in the prior year.
And
One's
the,
been paid,
And the September quarter was paid in January.
right? So only 1 is outstanding at this point. Your loans receivable, when you take the current portion plus the long-term portion down under other assets, overall that increased about 265,000. You look at page page 18 at the bottom, you can see the loan receivable and how that rolls forward year over year. So we were able to loan out about 925,000 to 40 local businesses this year. And that increased your loan portfolio by that 265,000. On the liability side, you borrowed another 500,000 from the SBA, so that increased your loan to the SBA. And then you also extended your lease year, so your lease liability increased, so you extended it for the 5-year option. So that additional 5-year option that's now in the new agreement was added to the lease liability, so that increased that number. And then unearned revenue number under non-current liabilities, that's where the additional CDBG loan that you made sits in that number. So those are the loans, like Mike mentioned before, the equipment loans that are on the books as a loan receivable, and then the other side of those is an unearned revenue liability, because the intention with those is that the loan agreement allows for them to be forgiven at a certain point in time if they maintain the FTEs. That's really what I wanted to point out. The notes are very consistent and basically just roll forward to the prior year. So unless anybody had any questions on notes to the financial statements, there's really nothing unusual to point out there.
Did you discover any irregularities?
Nope, I think the, you look at our prior communication letter, which is the other document, we had no material adjustments. We had no pass adjustments, so nothing we identified that was an error that we passed on. I think management did a great job getting the books in good order for us to be able to do our work. It's always a pleasure to work with Mike and his team. They, are very responsive to everything we need, and it's a pretty straightforward, easy process. I think the only thing we ran into a little bit of challenges with this year was the single audit stuff that we discussed.
And that's to be resolved.
To be resolved, and it will be resolved. I'm not,
Okay.
Worried about it being resolved correctly. It's just gonna take a little more time.
Sure. Good, so this will get us,
Recommendation to the full board for approval.
right, I'm not sure we have a quorum present. Yeah. So I think what we'll do is,
What is it, March 31st? It's the March 31st.
yeah, this gets us through March 31st and then on to the single audit and,
Our goal is to get that done by April 15th or
Okay.
April 30th.
Yeah, it'll be,
And it's not due till September. you
it's
said,
not
so
just
you're
till
well
September,
within
but
it.
it's not gonna take us, it'll take us maybe another couple of weeks. like you said.
And you do the 990 right off the audit.
We base the 990 off the audited
So
financials.
That's just pushing a button and double
Yeah.
checking it.
They typically start the 990 after April 15th, just because they're so busy with the other tax work, but then we usually file it, I think, by the May 15th deadline, we're gonna end extending it.
any other questions?
No, the letter is really helpful and clear.
Yeah, in the letter, there's nothing else in here that's unusual. Like I said, there's no adjustments. This is all just standard language that we're required to
Any
do.
question you would have laid out on the letter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to thank Kathy, Cat Lyden for her work in
job.
putting this together, because, all of the detail is, devil is in the detail, and Cat manages the detail well. And again, want to thank Nicole, Kenny, and Stephen, and whoever else worked on it that I'm not aware of.
That was the team.
But they did a great job, and we do have a little bit back and forth, so that I learn each time, and we learn together. And I do think that this year we did involve RBT to assist because of the restrictions on UHY meeting complete independence because of the single audit for additional assistance.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again.
Thank you, Nicole. We'll excuse you so you can go bill someone else.
Sounds good, plenty of people to bill.
Not enough time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So if there was a quorum here, would you vote yes to recommend approval to the board?
Yeah,
All right,
yes.
so why don't we ask that the
She's
minute-
very thorough, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
why don't we ask that the minutes reflect that the two members of the committee who are present and heard the presentation support the approval of the audit report by the board.
Just I have a question about the single audit. So we didn't get to that threshold last year.
Yes, we did.
Because I thought we would,
Well,
yeah,
well, when we now went over the million.
okay,
Well, maybe we could.
yeah, absolutely. That's the only question I have, but I just want to ask you.
So I can explain that in a minute.
Okay.
After you return.
On to the consent agenda, we have the minutes from December 2024 meeting and documents related to the committee to discharge duties, the self-evaluation and the audit committee charter. Any questions? We
Now,
can't,
Lisa, you have to file those.
Can we make a motion to accept that?
No,
Yeah.
you know, so we can just, they're only documents, none of it, you have to approve minutes. You should approve the rest of it. But
Why don't we
none of that
file-
none of that gets submitted to the.
Okay.
So we can roll that forward to the
Okay.
next month.
Great.
And we'll just report it next year that it was approved. We don't
Yeah.
have to say.
well, I don't have any problem just sending these to the board this
Yeah.
month.
Well, we
without
will.
any-
Yeah, I would do that. because
You
board
put them on the
can
board
always-
agenda for approval and then
And
they're,
then that's, so
ratified.
that takes care of it. That's why
Okay.
it's nice having a double. So that's not something I worry about. The audit is what I look at.
Yeah.
Any other topics that you wanted to cover here at the audit committee meeting? No? Okay. Then, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it. Well, I'll say aye, and that's it for today.
thank you.
Thank you.